All right, so you wanted to explore Amish culture. Well, get this. We found this amazing documentary on YouTube called Les Amish, une communauté dans notre âge.
Oh, yeah, a real gem,
Hmm.
especially since, the Amish rarely allow filming.
I know. They actually spent months negotiating to get access.
Months just to get a camera in there. So that tells you something about their commitment to privacy.
Right, but thanks to that effort, we get a glimpse into their lives, their beliefs, even Rumspringa.
Rumspringa.
Yeah, imagine like growing up without cars, electricity, even like a regular phone.
Right.
And then suddenly, bam, you're thrown into the modern world.
Wow.
It's a lot to process, so let's jump in.
Okay.
So their history, it really shapes their whole worldview, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They came out of the Reformation, right? And they thought even groups like the Calvinists were too moderate.
Can you imagine?
It's wild. They wanted something stricter.
Yeah.
And that drive for like a pure, simple life, that's what led them to America.
Yeah.
And they've held on to those traditions like so strongly, haven't they?
Oh, yeah.
The documentary lists all the things they forbid. Electricity, cars, telephones, television, everything.
It's a long list.
It seems restrictive, but then you hear Karen, Amy, and Laura talk about how free they feel within those restrictions.
Right.
They actually associate the outside world with fear and guilt.
Wow.
It really makes you question our own ideas of freedom, you know?
Yeah, it's a complete flip of what we're used to, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, they think true freedom comes from living in God's will. And that means separating themselves from worldly temptations.
Right, exactly. And that separation, it extends to like modern science too.
Oh, absolutely.
They believe the Bible, like literally, rejecting the Big Bang and evolution as devil's work.
Oh, yeah.
I was really struck by Myron, the religion teacher, and how he connected the Renaissance to like the decline of faith and the rise of all these worldly concerns. They see a straight line from scientific progress to spiritual decline.
It all ties together for them.
Yeah, it's all connected.
Their beliefs, their lifestyle, how they work.
Their work ethic. Don't even get me started.
Yeah.
It's incredible, their dedication to farming and craftsmanship.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a paradox, right?
Oh, yeah.
They use these like really old methods,
Yeah.
but they're thriving economically in a capitalist system.
Yeah, well, their work ethic is a big factor, of course.
Yeah?
They work so hard, they put their earnings back into land. And community growth is more important than individual wealth.
Yeah, and that community focus, I think that gives them an edge too.
Oh, yeah.
Remember the documentary mentioned, they often pool resources for big purchases?
Mm-hmm.
Like they can buy land and equipment they couldn't afford alone.
Right. It's all about the community.
That sense of community, you can feel it throughout the documentary. It's
Okay.
like everyone has a role to play,
Yeah. I was trying to picture myself without a phone or internet. I just can't.
It's hard to imagine.
We're so glued to those things,
Mm-hmm.
but they see it all as a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's pulling them away from what really matters. God, family, community.
It is a pretty radical idea in our world,
Totally.
choosing to disconnect to strengthen those core things.
Yeah, but it's not always so black and white, right?
Yeah, not always.
The documentary also showed how they, navigate the modern world without breaking their core beliefs.
Yeah.
Like those windmills they use for electricity.
Oh, yeah, that's a great example.
Okay, hold on. Isn't that kind of a loophole?
Wow.
It seems like directly contradicting their whole anti-technology thing.
It is, and it isn't.
Okay.
They see it as using a natural resource, God's creation.
Right.
Rather than embracing the kind of technology they think distances them from God.
Interesting.
It's a fine line, but a fascinating one.
It definitely raises questions like, where do they draw the line?
Right. And what happens when those lines get blurry?
Especially for the younger generation.
Especially for the younger generation.
Yeah.
Which brings us to Rumspringa.
Oh, Rumspringa.
Now that's a whole other story.
A whole other story.
But let's save that for part 2 of our deep dive.
Sounds good. Welcome back.
I'm still thinking about those windmills powering those Amish homes. It's like a reminder that even the strictest traditions can bend in unexpected ways.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder what happens when those traditions collide with the modern world.
Exactly, and that's what Rumspringa is all about, right?
Exactly,
This
yeah.
period where Amish youth get to experience the outside world before making that huge decision.
Right, to join the church or leave the community.
A huge decision.
Talk about pressure. Imagine growing up without electricity, cars, modern clothes,
Right.
and then suddenly you're exposed to it all. It's like landing on a different planet.
Exactly.
And that's what we see with John Wayne. Even his name is a nod to like Hollywood and individualism.
Hmm.
It's true. Such a contrast to the humility and community they're raised with.
Yeah.
He really embodies that tension between tradition and temptation.
Absolutely. And it's not always pretty. The documentary touches on the darker side of Rumspringa,
Oh, yeah?
like that cocaine dealing scandal that brought in the FBI.
It was a shock, for sure.
It really was a reminder that they're not immune to the problems of the outside world.
No, not at all. But what struck me was their response.
Oh, yeah.
They fully cooperated with the authorities, even held community meetings to address the issue.
Wow.
It's so different from what we usually see, where communities resist outside intervention.
Yeah, it really shows their commitment to accountability and
Yeah.
self-governance, right?
Absolutely. They face their problems head on as a community.
And that strong sense of community, it's a source of strength, but also potential conflict.
Yeah, especially when someone decides to leave.
Like Amos, he left at 26 and now runs a business catering to tourists interested in Amish culture.
It's a big change.
It's a huge change.
His story is so interesting. It challenges the idea that leaving means rejecting their values.
Right.
He clearly still respects his upbringing, even shares home movies from his childhood.
Yeah.
It suggests that leaving isn't always about rebellion, but finding a different path.
Yeah, he even seems to have found a way to connect the two worlds.
He has, using his knowledge of Amish culture to connect with the outside.
It's pretty amazing. But it's not always that smooth, is it?
No, not always.
Yeah.
Remember Irene, who left for love and faced a much harsher shunning because her father was a minister.
Oh, yeah. Her story is heartbreaking.
It really highlights the pressure to conform and the potential cost of choosing individual happiness.
Shunning is such a powerful tool, but it can be so isolating and painful.
It really makes you wonder what keeps people coming back to this way of life.
Yeah, with all the restrictions and consequences, why does the Amish community keep growing?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
And it's something we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive. We'll unpack the reasons behind their enduring appeal and what lessons, if any, we can learn from them.
So we've talked about their commitment to simplicity and community and faith, and we've seen the challenges of Rumspringa and the consequences of leaving. But there's one thing we haven't really explored.
The role of women.
Exactly. Their lives seem, I don't know, so defined by tradition, by the expectations of their community. But is it really that simple?
The documentary gave us some interesting insights, right? Like, remember those young women walking in the woods? Karen, Amy, and Laura?
Yeah.
They talked about their plain clothing and no makeup, not as restrictions, but as sources of freedom.
It was wild. I was like, but you have no choices. And they're saying it's liberating,
Yeah.
freeing them from like the pressures of vanity and comparison.
Right. It's a great example of how our perceptions are shaped by our own culture.
Totally.
What we see as limiting, they see as empowering.
It makes you question our own assumptions about freedom and self-expression.
Absolutely.
Like maybe having fewer options lets them focus on what really matters.
And what matters most, at least from what we saw, is faith, family, and community.
Yeah.
And Amish women are at the center of that community.
They really are. They raise the children, take care of the homes, support their husbands and their work.
It's essential, their contribution.
Their work is like invisible in a lot of ways,
Right.
but it's crucial to the whole system.
Yeah, it is. It reminded me of that scene with the women preparing that huge meal for the gathering.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone working together, such coordinated effort.
It's amazing. Right. It's a collective effort. Everyone plays their part.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even though they might not have formal authority in the church, their influence within the family and community is huge.
It really is. I'm thinking of that old order couple, the ones who wanted to be interviewed with the hidden camera.
Oh, right.
Even the wife, so traditional and devout, she confessed to wanting to fly on a plane someday.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Such a small detail, but it stuck with me.
Me too. It shows that even under all that conformity, they still have individual dreams.
Right. Even within the strictest rules, human nature finds a way.
It makes their stories so much more human, so much more relatable.
Absolutely. It breaks down that stereotype of the Amish as this, like, unchanging block.
Right. It's not that simple.
They're a diverse group with different personalities, beliefs, and experiences.
And that diversity is even more apparent when you look at the people who leave, like Irene.
Yeah, her story shows how much courage it takes to break away from the only life you've ever known.
Especially when the stakes are so high.
Shunning is a powerful way to enforce conformity, but it comes at a cost.
For the individual and the community.
It makes you think about how sustainable those practices are,
Yeah.
especially in a world that's more and more connected.
Can any community really isolate itself forever? That's the question.
It is a big question.
Mm.
What do the future hold for the Amish? Can they keep their way of life in the face of, everything changing around them?
It's hard to say, but one thing's for sure. They offer a powerful alternative to our modern life. They remind us that there are other ways to be, other ways to define success and happiness.
They make us question our own values, our relationship with technology, our obsession with being individuals.
Yeah, they show us that community, faith, and simplicity can be sources of strength and fulfillment.
And maybe, even though they seem so isolated, they have something to teach us.
About our own increasingly complex and disconnected world.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with a sense of wonder and a deep respect for this resilient community that chooses to live differently.
It's a good reminder that there's always more to learn, always more to explore. And who knows, maybe there's some Amish wisdom we can all use in our own lives.
I think so too. Thanks for joining us on this journey. We'll be back soon with another deep dive, something new to spark your curiosity.
Until then, keep exploring.